Welcome, everybody, to a brand new edition of the Pack a Day podcast here on YouTube. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Very excited for today's episode because I want to run down the most dynamic duos in the NFL today and really focus, of course, in on Aaron Jones and Davante Adams and just how potent of a combo that they are and where they rank in the upper echelon of teams with the best 1-2 combos in all of the NFL. And before I jump into some of those teams and some of those dynamic playmakers, I want to go over just how difficult it is for teams to stop both Davante Adams and Aaron Jones simultaneously. And having two players of this caliber, especially for a bright offensive mind in Matt LaFleur and a quarterback, hopefully, like Aaron Rodgers, it makes things so incredibly hard on defenses and opens up so many options and opportunities for the offense. And starting with Davante Adams, on the outside, when you have a receiver who one-on-one can beat the best of the best, can beat anyone in the NFL, that makes it such a hard decision for the opposing defensive coordinators of how they want to defend that, because it almost makes you have a safety over the top or at least some potential help or throw a variety of different things. You can't do the same thing over and over in single man-to-man coverage against Davante Adams. You can play a little bit more zone. You can try to just make it a bend but don't break sort of thing, but it limits your options as a defensive coordinator when you have Davante Adams over there. We also saw, even with Davante Adams over there, teams a lot of times defended the Packers to stop the run first, to stop Aaron Jones first, because they knew how important that play action offense was to Green Bay, and then developing that throughout the course of the game, getting those free, open wide receivers or tight ends, coming across the field, the deep shots down the field to Adams or MVS. So they decided in many occasions to defend Aaron Jones and the running game and make that the priority, which of course makes things easier for Davante Adams. And if you focus on Davante Adams, that's inherently going to make things easier for Aaron Jones. So just the fact that you've got one wide receiver, one running back, and they can accomplish, two very different things makes things very complex for the defense. But now add in Matt LaFleur's scheme and, more importantly, Aaron Rodgers' mind at the line of scrimmage, because with those two things and doing two totally separate things, it's very tough for a defense to disguise exactly what they're going to do before the play. Like, what are they going to do to stop Davante Adams? And if Aaron Rodgers can pick up on that, now he has a much easier determination of, all right, do I want to go to Davante? If he's one-on-one, that's a pretty easy check to, I'm looking at Davante first. Or two, if they're focused on Davante and more of a pass first type defense, that's going to certainly open me up for Aaron Jones in the running game and to do a variety of different things with him. But then you even saw it get more creative where you had the double running backs in the backfield. Now Aaron Jones is motioning out wide with blockers in front of him. If you're getting a 3-on-3 on that side, you're taking your one-on-one matchup with Aaron Jones. So now you've got a different safety or defensive back or linebacker that's moving over there, which is now opening up potentially Davante Adams. Oh, you've got that covered too. Now you can run A.J. Dillon with a super small box of defenders across from you. Like, Matt LaFleur is just so fun to watch how he schemes up these different mismatches, and then with Aaron Rodgers' mind to make those checks and correct reads and then distribute the ball quickly and accurately. It's just a nightmare for defenses to defend. But having two dynamic playmakers in Davante Adams and Aaron Jones is really what puts defenses on edge and gives Green Bay an advantage as they're trying to take advantage of whatever the defense is giving them and stay away from whatever they're trying to take away. Now, just real quick, you have to be careful on that too, because even if they're taking away Davante Adams, you still as a coordinator need to find a way to get Davante Adams involved. You can't just say, well, they're taking away Adams, so we're going to run Jones and just not feed Adams. Adams is too good to make that happen, and vice versa. So you've got to be creative, but again, the benefit here is that Matt LaFleur is. So where does Jones and Adams rank among the best duos in the NFL? So let's go through some of the really good ones in no particular order. Cleveland Browns, Odell Beckham and Nick Chubb, certainly a very talented duo. Nick Chubb, one of the best running backs in all of football. Odell Beckham, I personally, I think ODB is a little bit overrated, or OBJ, whatever you want to call him. I guess ODB has a more Wu-Tang Clan connotation, so we'll go with OBJ. But yeah, so I think Odell Beckham and Nick Chubb still one of the better duos in the NFL. And even if I do think Odell Beckham's a little bit overrated, still definitely one that makes it very difficult on defenses to have to scheme against both of those guys at the same time. The Tennessee Titans picking up Julio Jones, having Derrick Henry in the backfield, that is going to be a nightmare. And oh, by the way, even if Julio's not there, or even if you think more of AJ Brown, AJ Brown and Derrick Henry was already a nightmare to defend both of those. But I'm still going to say, I'm going to give the nod to Julio still and say Derrick Henry and Julio Jones. That is obviously an incredible duo that teams are going to have to scheme against this upcoming year. Kansas City Chiefs, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. I don't even need to go into detail here, right? Tyreek Hill, the quickest, fastest, most video game wide receiver in the NFL. And then you've got your big possession guy in Travis Kelce over the middle. Chargers, Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. Cowboys, Zeke Elliott and Amari Cooper. And I think Elliott's, winding down here as to, like the prime of his career. I think he has been the last couple of seasons. Still very good, but hasn't been the same as he was younger just because he's had so much wear and tear. But he's still Zeke Elliott, Amari Cooper, heck of a 1-2 punch. The Giants getting Kenny Golladay and putting him with Saquon Barkley. That's a heck of a 1-2. One that's not ready yet, but I'm excited about in the next couple seasons. Joe Mixon at running back, Jamar Chase at wide receiver. That has the ability to be a heck of a 1-2 punch in Cincinnati. The Bills are interesting. Stephon Diggs and anyone is deserving to be on this list because Diggs is that good, but they don't have that pure number 2 guy, right? Gabe Davis, Cole Beasley. They've got Singletary at running back, Zach Moss at running back. They've got a few different guys that could be that number 2 eventually, but they don't have like a pure number 2, so it's tough to rank them. But Stephon Diggs and any of those guys is still a potent 1-2 because of how good Stephon Diggs is. Washington football team, one that I think is under the radar, but I think is actually really, really good. Terry McLaurin at wide receiver and Antonio Gibson at running back. That is a young, talented tandem that I think is going to be a handful for teams for the next handful of seasons, if not more. Bears, Allen Robinson and David Montgomery. Of course, the Packers and Adams and Jones, which we've been going over. Minnesota Vikings, Dalvin Cook, and I'm going Justin Jefferson here. Like, that's how high I think already Justin Jefferson. I think he's already ahead of Adam Thielen for the best overall wide receiver on the Vikings. And Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson are an absolute handful to defend. And I think that's going to be one of those ones that's very dynamic for the next handful of seasons as well. The Carolina Panthers, DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, both of those guys can stay healthy. They are a duo that you have to be aware of where both of them are on the field at all times. Both of them can do a variety of different things. McCaffrey's ability to line up as a wide receiver is so frustrating as a defensive coordinator because, he's not just a running back. He's good enough where if he could never carry the ball, he's still, they're still 1-2 on this list because McCaffrey's just so good as a wide receiver on the Panthers as well. So that's a good duo. Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara for the Saints. Godwin and Evans for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, both at wide receiver. Hopkins and AJ Green. I know AJ Green's a little bit washed at this point, but I'm really excited to see with Kyler Murray just how good that duo can be. And if AJ Green is the number 2 guy, can have a little bit of a resurgence, especially out of Cincinnati, playing for a potential contender. I'm really excited to see that Hopkins AJ Green duo for Arizona. Deebo Samuel and George Kittle for the San Francisco 49ers. Not your traditional 1-2 per se, but both of them very dynamic in their own sort of way. And then the Seattle Seahawks, Metcalf and Lockett at wide receiver, or if you want to do Metcalf and Chris Carson as well, that would certainly be another one. So those were the different names that come to mind and some of the best duos in the league. If I were to rank these 1 through 5, and this is very tough to do, I'm going Hill and Kelce as number 1 on my list for the Kansas City Chiefs. I just think what Hill's able to do to threaten defenses, I think the thing that makes him so scary is you have to play off of him, because if you play on him, he's going to dart right past you, and they're going to complete, because of Mahomes' deep ball ability, they're going to complete a deep ball right over the top. You play off of him, Mahomes gives him a quick pass, and he can still take it 80 yards because he's just going to run by people. Like, he's just an absolute video game nightmare to try to cover in the NFL. And I don't know how teams figure out a way to keep him under wraps. More often than not, they don't. And then you add in a Travis Kelce over the middle, just one of these ultimate possession tight ends, so dynamic, able to have, is great run after the catch ability as well for a tight end. And then of course Patrick Mahomes throwing both of these guys the ball doesn't hurt anything either. But I'm going number one, Hill and Kelce. Number two, I think health is going to be a factor here, but specifically with Julio Jones. But Derrick Henry, Julio Jones has to be on this list. And again, even if Julio's hurt, you still have AJ Brown and Derrick Henry. I just think the Titans have a lot of options there, but I think Julio and Derrick Henry, at least for a season, if Julio can play close to his, and maybe not prime self, but even close to what he was a couple seasons ago, that duo is going to be insanely hard to stop in Tennessee. Number three, I'm going Adams and Jones. Again, most people right now have Adams as the number one wide receiver in football, and Aaron Jones certainly in the conversation, top 5, top 10 running backs. And again, add in Aaron Jones, Matt LaFleur, and what they can do. I think that duo is dynamic as almost any in the league. Number four, I'm going Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. I just think the world of both of those players and what they can bring to the table. I think they have a lot of other question marks on offense, including that quarterback with Kirk Cousins, but Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson are not two of those question marks. Number five is really tough. I'm going to go Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, just because I think Kamara has a lot of versatility and can be so dynamic. And I think Michael Thomas is a little bit limited maybe in his overall, bag of tricks and what he can bring to the table as a wide receiver. But I also think that he doesn't nearly get the credit he deserves, and he kind of gets, crapped on in a couple different ways, when he's still a really good wide receiver. Now, with no Drew Brees there, that could affect both of those players. But, I still think good players are good players, and Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara are certainly deserving to be on this list as a tandem. But if you want to take Thomas and Kamara off and put Chubb and Beckham, Kittle and Debo, Metcalf and Lockett, Allen Robinson, David Montgomery, there's so many, Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore, there's so many different ways you can go there. There's a lot of dynamic duos, but Green Bay's obviously very lucky to have Adams and Aaron Jones. And to me, I put them at number 3 in the NFL for best dynamic duos, best duo of weapons for any team in the NFL. Let me know what you think below. Where would you rank Aaron Jones and Davante Adams on this list? Who would you have as number 1? And again, where exactly do you put the Packers on that list of dynamic duos? That's going to do it for me today. Thanks so much for listening. Make sure to check out today's audio version of the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts. I'll be right back here tomorrow, so you might as well subscribe. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.